What is going on, world? Steve Dab 317 back with another reaction video, and I'm actually jumping on the Tom MacDonald train a bit early this time. So, I went on ahead, definitely subscribe to the channel. I hit his bell notification. If you haven't already done so, make sure you do. Absolutely make sure you do that, because what I've seen so far, he's definitely dropping some heat. But today he released Dummies, and let's see what it's about. Hopefully my audio's decent. And hey, I appreciate the tips about getting headsets and, to give me a better listening experience. I've got a pair of Beats somewhere around here. It's the not the over-the-ear Beats, but the Beats Power Pro. So I will dig those out and try to figure out how to get this all linked up. But in the meantime, I did want to get this video out, so let's roll it.
I love the earth, but I don't really want to save it. Everything is sexist, homophobic, or it's racist. When life gives us lemons, we're supposed to want to change it. But my generation rather take some pills than escape it. Say that I'm transphobic if you wanna, but one day I'll be a father, and I really hope my son don't grow up to be my daughter. I ain't trying to hurt your feelings, it should be a little thicker. That's the problem, being honest, I'm triggered. The kids are getting weaker because they're sheltered by society. Pumpkin spice Ativan for seasonal anxiety. Wokeness has become a way to bully non-violently and cancel everyone without improving on the life we lead. Without the white, there's no black. Without the straight, there's no gay. Without the men, there's no women. Without the night, there's no day. Without the idiots who couldn't laugh at them when they fall. So maybe we need them after all. Ain't nobody dumber than y'all.
All right, so I'm going to stop it here. I know I'm only about a minute in, but I just kind of wanted to try to touch bases on a few of the things I picked up on. And once again, I think there's a lot of heat in what's going on. It seems like we're getting to a point where you almost cannot say anything to anybody without somebody saying they're offended by it. And I think we are starting to soften the generations, in terms of what people can deal. I mean, remember the phrase, what was the Pee Wee Herman thing or something? Whatever you say bounces off me and sticks to you, and how, somebody will say something, whatever, and going about your way. But like, it's so mainstream now. But I'm also not saying that, like, I feel like bullying is right, but what they call bullying today, that was just everyday life. And, but we grew up okay. At least I think I'm okay. So it's just really interesting kind of seeing the dynamics where it's like, yes, be mindful and respectful to others and caring, and, I'm for all that. But at the same time, like, if you allow somebody to run crying to you every time something goes on, it's like, what are you teaching them? Because at some point in time, you won't be there, or the next person won't be there, or they won't have anybody to go run and cry to. So, like, who are they going to depend on to help them work through and filter and learn how to deal with situations? I think that's one of the skills in life that we all need, is learning how to work through and deal with situations.
Everyone's obsessed with making stupid people famous. If a white boy raps, then it's called appropriation. But Beyonce does a hair blonde and people say she's slavey. Everybody's outraged, everybody's mad. Our solutions to the issues don't make no.
All right, so I can tell you this. in with the Beyonce, I'm really curious to see how the Beehive. I'm really curious to see how they're going to respond to that line. It seems like oftentimes if anybody says anything about Beyonce that they don't perceive as being like praise or, congratulations, like they've lashed out big time. So I'm really curious just to see how. Actually, I'm going to probably get on a couple of Instagram pages and just kind of see how this unfolds. And like I said, I don't think he had malicious intent or anything. I'm just curious how they'll perceive what he said, though.
Sense. The stairs are the problem, we build wheelchair ramps. We don't cancel feet or persecute the people with legs. The feminists who started the movement will be ashamed of so many things. They fought so you can vote, I show your butthole on OnlyFans. I'm not a bad person if you don't like what I say. Call me homophobic just because I think straight. I love people even though we disagree. I wish we could get Wi-Fi signals from a tree. Then everyone would plant them and we'd probably save the planet for free. Too bad we only need them to breathe.
Man, I've really got to think about, like, that last line, you know, with the Wi-Fi and the trees, and how insignificant we seem to make trees. I mean, we're cutting them down at an alarming rate and things like that. And I'm like not a hardcore environmentalist, but you know, and then he comes back with, you know, too bad we only need them to breathe. And I think there's a lot there that I gotta unpack. You know, one of my goals with these videos is to not make them 30 minutes or whatever, and I definitely will have to listen to this multiple times. This is just my initial first reaction. I'm sure I could probably do a second reaction to this video and you know, unpack a ton more information from it. But you know, that last part, too bad we only need them to breathe. I mean, it just makes you think like where we put our priorities in life. You know, like what are we really focusing on? And are we focused on the stuff that's truly important, or are we willing to overlook that to say, hey, I want to criticize you for doing X, Y, and Z? So, you know, people being, you know, he mentioned being homophobic or homosexuality in this video. It's like people, man, there's just a lot. There's a lot I have to say, but you know, I do oftentimes think that we can narrow down so much and spend so much time and effort looking down one avenue or one lane that we forget about all the other things going in the world. You know, it's like we can put all our energies and efforts focusing in on one area, but then we forget about, you know, there being starving children, and we forget about the domestic abuse, and we forget about, you know what I mean, so many other things because we get like hyper focused. That's, I guess, the term I'm looking for is hyper focused. But let's keep this thing rolling. We're almost halfway through.
Classifying people by the sex and race degrades them, but we still stay straight. White males are the worst of our population. Guess the labels are okay if they're Caucasian. Our kids are living in the rooms, I swear we barely...
Hey man, I almost feel like he might have watched my last reaction video to his other song. Like, and I know it's probably just a coincidence, but you know, kind of when I was just kind of touching bases on labels and like how, you know, with certain demographics, you know, it's some labels are used and it's okay, it's fine and dandy, but if they're used with a different demographic, all of a sudden it's a huge deal. And but nah, it's you know, again, I think he's pushing some buttons, but I also think he's hitting the nail on the head in many ways. You know.
You ever see them go outside sometime? There's fresh air you could be breathing. Put your phones down, play sports, do something illegal. Go and meet your families, they're probably nice people. These days you're a Nazi if you don't hate the police.
All right, look, and then I'm gonna let this roll for a minute. But like, I remember as a kid, we may or may not have went to Super 7 down the street from the house and found they had slingshots in there. Not like little regular slingshots. I mean like Bart Simpson, you know what I mean, full throttle. And we may or may not had a lot of rocks in the neighborhood, and we may or may not spend a lot of time riding our bicycles through alley, breaking people's back windows and their kitchens, and I'm not saying this to say I was proud of it, but like we did a lot of stupid stuff, probably some illegal stuff, but you know what? We were definitely active. We were definitely moving, whether it was jumping on our bikes and riding or running or playing football in the empty, like we were always doing something, you know. But I look at that, and then I look at, you know, where we're going as a society in terms of one, obesity. You know, now they've got multiple classes of obesity and preventable diseases, right? But I look at the sedentary lifestyle that so many people are taking up these days, and then I compare it to like the way things were back when. Like I had like a Nintendo, I had a video game system and stuff, but it was like, for me, that was one of them things that I pulled out if it was raining or too late at night and my mom wouldn't let me go outside. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'll jump on a video game for a minute. We may play a little bit. But even while doing that, dude, I was playing like, remember track and field on a Nintendo? And it had the little pad and you had to run and jump. And like, I was doing stuff like that. Man, I said I wasn't going to make this 20 minutes. And here I go, I start rambling. But those were the good days. And it seems like nowadays we're so afraid of everything. Like, do we even live life anymore? I feel like we're becoming stormtroopers or something, slowly but surely, you know. Like I spent the majority of my life drinking out of a water hose. But now they say, oh, you absolutely shouldn't do that, and you need this type of high pH. Bro, just give me some water, and I'm good. All right. Anyway, let's keep it running. I don't want to digress too much, but man, it's the good old days.
They say that white folks think all Asian people are Chinese. I'm sorry, what kind of white people you mean? English, Scottish, German, Swedish, or Greek? And Black Lives Matter is problematic. It excludes anyone without the pigment. It's automatic. I understand all the reasons it happened, but including all humans is the actual answer.
All right, that's going to be a trigger. I guarantee that's going to be a trigger phase. You know what? Let me back up a little bit. Let me listen to that one more time before I respond to it. Let me, hopefully I get this right. I'm going to go back to about 2:30.
Black Lives Matter is problematic. It excludes anyone without the pigment. It's automatic. I understand all the reasons it happened, but including all humans is the actual answer.
Ooh, wow. So this is a... Can I agree and disagree with him? Can I strongly disagree with it? Strongly agree with him? Last time. I want to get a couple seconds beforehand.
They say that white folks think all Asian people are Chinese. I'm sorry, what kind of white people you mean? English, Scottish, German, Swedish, or Greek? And Black Lives Matter is problematic.
All right, let's just start with that phrase of it. Black Lives Matter, as he said, and I quote, Black Lives Matter is problematic. There could be, I don't know. Because here's the thing. So like, is it the Black Lives Matter? Like, is there a problem that Black Lives Matter? Is he speaking to like the movement, the Black Lives Matter movement? But then also, when we look at the movement, are we taking in consideration the pure movement or the other things that existed in addition to it? But also, problematic does not mean it's a bad thing. You know, it's a problem for somebody somewhere. And maybe that's what he's kind of referencing there. I don't know, or maybe he said, I don't, this is one of those, literally, I'm going to have to go back and sit down and think about it. I love doing these instant reaction videos and saying what immediately comes to mind. But like, if you ever see me, maybe let's say you do a second reaction and change my viewpoint on something, all that means is that I just sat down and I took more time to think about it and to dissect things. Because like, I'll take a chord or I'll take a line or a single verse and I may sit and think about it for weeks at a time. But that entire time I'm processing, like what angle, how's that relevant to the entire song, or what was really being stated there. But let's finish the rest of this this stanza.
It excludes anyone without the pigment. It's automatic. I understand all the reasons it happened, but including all humans is the actual answer.
So now when I say the strongly disagree, maybe it's just a disagree, but when I say I strongly agree, this concept that including everybody is the answer, I agree with. I definitely agree with that, because and I've said this for years, but how do I put it? Separation or segregation isn't the answer, right? So you imagine if, let's see, what terms do I want to use? Let's say if, you know, we went to this very strong point where we only wanted to deal with other blacks and didn't want to support any white establishment and completely distance and not have white friends. I mean, just complete separation. At best case scenario, all we do is flip the table, right? But then if we sit here and complain about everybody who thinks this way, and then we flip the table to where we're up here, and then we have that same mindset, we haven't accomplished anything at all. Right, we went from one polar extreme to the other polar extreme. So, you know, I definitely would agree with the concept of we need to have an all-inclusive approach, you know, and I will say that all lives do matter. But as a caveat to that, I'll also say the pure Black Lives Matter movement did not at all say that other lives don't matter. And see, and that's what I think a lot of the misconception is people hear that and they immediately think, well, what about other lives? Black lives aren't more important. That's not that's not what the pure intent of the movement is. And the reason why I keep saying purity and pure intent is because there are a lot of spinoff to that. I guess to give you an analogy, we'll use our military for an example, and there are amazing members of the military without a doubt. And you also you occasionally you have those loose strands, those people who are a bit wacky or whatever's going on. Maybe it's whatever they got going on, right? And they go and do something that we see as being outlandish, right? We can't look at what they do and paint the entire military movement with that same paintbrush. And I think the similar thing happens when it comes to the Black Lives Matter movement. And before you jump in the comments saying, why is he comparing Black Lives Matter to our military? That's not what I'm doing at all. But the point I'm making is that, like, when the movement started, there was a very specific focus. But what's happened is you've had other things that have kind of spawned out of that weren't necessarily its original intention. And individuals may still associate themselves, but they don't necessarily stick true to the actual movement. The violence and the violent related things and the arson and burning things down, and that's another, man, that's another topic that definitely could open some doors to a interesting conversation. It's like, in terms of equality, there's been a lot of different attempts that have been made over the years, and it seems that the attempts that actually elicit change end up being the attempts that result in financially touching the pockets of other people, if that makes sense. So, like, it's like people can, they can boycott and they could hold up signs and they can, refute, but it's like that seems to happen, then it just gets washed away. But the very moment people start burning down big establishments, even the looting, and I am not saying looting is the way to go. That's not what I'm saying at all. But with all of that stuff, what happens is you start financially messing with people's pockets. But then it seems like when that happens, all of a sudden, people start taking notice and paying attention and want to do something different, Now, let me let this finish point. I've got one more point to make on that, but I'll double back. But I don't want to just, like I said, I don't want to make this a 30-minute reaction video, but we'll see what happens. Two new albums coming September 3rd. There's another 10 seconds here. Let me see if there's something else after this. Gotcha. All right. So 4K video. Oh, let me see. Did I forget what I was going to say? Oh, so the other thing is when we look at the different approaches people have used, this is not me saying that I condone those things. Like, if you want something, go pay for it. It's that simple. If you owe somebody a debt, you pay off that debt. That's just, I don't look for forgiveness, in my opinion. But like, my thing is, I think sometimes people feel that they are pushed to a certain point where there's a bit of rage there, where people feel the need to react in a very hostile manner. And again, not saying that I agree with it, but I understand where people come from. And I understand the built-up frustration. And I think it's one of those things where, like, until you truly experience something or living in a specific specific skin, I don't think you can ever fully understand. An analogy once again. So let's say if, and this may trigger some people, but understand I'm using it as an analogy. Let's say if I were to say to a woman, to a mother, you know what, childbirth isn't all that bad. All you got to do is breathe and push and, all the stuff they tell you to do with the doctor. But all you got to do is just do with it. And the stuff we deal with as men is more difficult than childbirth. I imagine there will be women who on site, they will smack the out of me, right? Immediately, because they'll be like, You literally have no idea what it's like to birth a child. And I understand that. Right? I understand at best I can try to listen and try to be mindful and respectful to what they're telling me. And the reason why I bring that up as an analogy, because as a black man in the United States, like, I don't believe that there's any white man who could ever fully understand what all I've dealt with, what all I've went through, right? When they talk about, race, when I say they, I just, the world in general, like when there's mention of racism and hidden racism and like, there's some stuff where like, I could literally sit here and spit out stories for days of stuff that I've experienced from a young child, and I'm not saying that only happens that direction either, right? Because there's probably scenarios where let's use the same examples, where being a white male will go through some experiences that I may never understand. And I get that, but that's where I think it comes down to all of us. We need to take the time to sit down and just listen to what people are saying. Not necessarily listen with, I want to respond with this or that, but just kind of listen like open-heartedly, like, okay, I want to listen because I want to understand. But also realizing that odds are I will never fully understand. So if I don't fully understand you or your situation, if you don't fully understand me or my situation, what you may propose as a solution may not truly be the answer, right? You can only get that solution from your limited perspective. And I guess that's what I'm getting at. Is like, we all got a different journeys and different paths in life. And I don't know the exact answer to a lot of things that are going on. But what I do know is that sometimes people propose a solution to a problem, but they only see it through one lens. And as long as you're looking at things through a single lens, you're always going to have a relatively narrow scope. But sometimes we have to step back or take a 30,000-foot view and kind of just ask ourselves, like, how does it look from here? Well, how does it look from this person's or that person's perspective? And that's why I think it's I don't want to say easy, but it's not overly difficult for me to get myself to step away from my emotional convictions and also listen to what's been said. Kind of going back to the part where I said this is probably going to be a hot topic, where he talked about the Black Lives Matter movement. There are reasons where it's very close and dear to my heart. It means a lot to me because there's things that I understand. But then I also realize, like, I can't stand in that lane the entire time, and that's the only lens I listen through, and not try to understand what it looks like from the outside looking in, right? And I know oftentimes people have, and I'll kind of wrap this up, but I know oftentimes people kind of have a mindset of, I'm going to do me, I don't care what other people think. But I think the reality is, for the most part, we all care what other people think. I think we should all care about each other. It doesn't mean everything I do has to cater to you or everything you do has to cater to me. But it's one of those that we could just take the time to be mindful about, what we say, what we do. And above all else, above all other things, like, we're called to love each other. When it's all said and done, with all differences aside, all viewpoints and religions, and it doesn't matter, when it's all said and done with, we are all called to love each other. Whether a person is black, white, Asian, Hispanic, whether a person is straight, bisexual, homosexual, whether a person is atheist, agnostic, whether they're into monotheism, whatever a person's walks are in life, when it's all said and done with, if we remember that one thing, that we are all called to love each other. Like, if we can remember that, right, maybe we'll get somewhere in life. Anyways, yeah, I've enjoyed watching this. I'm definitely going to, I want to check this out again because, like I said, I want to unpack a bit more. But hopefully you enjoyed this reaction video. Keep the recommendations coming down in the comments below. Greatly appreciate it. Greatly appreciate everybody who's here at this point still. And Steve Dab 317 short. Sorry it was a bit lengthy, but I love talking. I love you guys. Signing off.